Good afternoon, everyone. It is 3:30 on the dot, and we don't want to hold you. But before we get started, if you don't mind, just type in your name. Well, you know your name, but yeah, go ahead and type your name in because you could be using someone else's computer. But just type in your name and your site for our attendance records. I do hope and pray that you had a great Tuesday today. They say Taco Tuesday. But go ahead on and sign in, and we are excited about the information that's going to be presented to us today. Hopefully it will be useful, and Erica's going to do the honors once we give everyone some time to get checked in for attendance and everything, and then we'll move forward.
Gotcha. So hey everybody, y'all know me. We got Stacy here with us today from PowerUp, and she's gonna tell us about her fitness curriculum and how it can be implemented in your 21st century program. So take it away, Stacy.
Awesome. Well, I will jump right into things and being mindful of everybody's time and this action-packed next hour. Excited to be here today. As you all are putting your name and organizations in the chat for attendance purposes, I'd like to ask you to also go ahead and add your favorite exercise or game. So physical activity game. That can be something that you like right now as an adult. So maybe you enjoy going for a walk or yoga or Zumba or hip hop classes, any of that. Or maybe it's a game from childhood, right? Like Red Rover or playing a pickup game of basketball. So kind of your version of joyful movement as we kind of jump into the session today. So awesome seeing some walking, some swimming, some kickboxing. Awesome. I think this just really helps me get a sense. Hopefully it brings a smile to your face if you're thinking of an activity that you enjoy, right? But also kind of gets you in that mindset of the experiences that we get through physical activity. And it's so much more than just a health component, which is a wonderful benefit of being physically active, but it's also a mental component. There's a social component, and we're going to address all of those today. I think Zumba and tennis and line dancing. Walking is definitely one of my favorites. We are headquartered in East Tennessee, so definitely starting to feel that winter chill now. It was 70 degrees last week, 40 the week before, and 70 the week before. So I'm sure you guys kind of experience a similar weather pattern, but walking is certainly one of my favorite things to get out and do, even if I only have 15, 20 minutes in the day. So appreciate you all sharing your joyful movement or the type of activity that really inspires you. That's what we're going to be focusing on so much today. So I'll quickly introduce myself and my colleague Alicia, who was hoping to be here today, but we've all got the flu and everything going around. So she's out. So my name is Stacy Boggess. I'm the founder and CEO of PowerUp Fitness and developer of the PowerUp Your School program. My background is as a pediatric exercise physiologist. I don't say that too many times because it's quite the tongue twister, but I found myself working in education for a school system here in Tennessee. And I was sharing with the admin team that I worked right alongside our 21st century grant writer and program director. So certainly understand the responsibilities that you all are doing on a day-to-day basis, and sincerely appreciate the work that you all are doing. I think after school and extended learning has an incredible impact on the students that are participating. So certainly appreciate you and your work. And in my time working with the school system, quickly saw that physical education, physical activity recess time was slowly being cut out of the school day. And so even if PE was still there, students were often being pulled from PE for academic intervention, or they were being, asked to stay in from recess to finish makeup work. And what felt so frustrating about this is that administrators weren't seeing the link and the benefit of physical activity on those students' academic achievement. So if they had been, given the opportunity to stay in PE that day, it might have actually improved their performance and their focus and their engagement in the classroom for the rest of that afternoon. So that's really what fueled PowerUp Your School and really this link between physical activity and academics. So we've got lots of resources for you today. I'm certainly, at the end, I've got a link that if you want a copy of today's presentation, it's got a lot of videos and things in it. then if you just fill that out, I can make sure you get a copy of this. We have a lot of free resources in addition to just the materials I'll be sharing with you today. We publish every month what we call our tips and tricks, and these are one-page flyers. We have a lot of sites that use these for family engagement. So they are kind of a short description of physical activities, most often tied to academics. So we see here equipment-free ways to power up math skills. And these are just different games and activities that you can do to incorporate math into physical activity. On these one-pagers, they either send them out electronically or print them out and send them home in backpacks. And then participants can then go do those exact same activities with their family. So those are always available on our website at powerupfitness.net. And like I said, we share those every single month with different topics and things that you'll probably find relevant to your program. So let's get into the meat of the discussion today. Today, we are going to apply creative thinking to the application of academic standards. We're going to learn stretches, exercises, and games that can be implemented in a variety of settings, and we're going to have fun. Okay, this is intentionally left blank. So if I asked you to repeat those back to me, would you be able to recall today's 3 objectives? Maybe some yeses, maybe some nos. Let's go through them again, but this time, entertain me here. And we're going to add just a little bit of movement to it. You don't have to get up from your chair. You can stay right where you are. But go ahead and act like you're about to put on a thinking cap. And we're going to apply creative thinking to the application of academic standards. Now, just kind of wherever you are, stretch in your seat, reach across the space. We're going to learn stretches, exercises, and games that can be implemented in a variety of settings. And then whatever kind of movement feels fun to you, I kind of just like do a little jig here. We're going to have fun. Okay. Now, are you able to recall those a little bit better? Sure, the repetition, the second time is helpful. But if you find yourself starting to do some of those motions as you're recalling the information that I just shared, that is active learning. So active learning is the idea that students are actively engaged in the learning process rather than just passively absorbing the information. So sitting at a desk and kind of hearing it be demonstrated to them or spoken to them, or just kind of reading it one time in a book, and that they're, involved in discussion, presentation, group work, role play, debating. That's really what active learning is. Anything that gets them interacting with that learning material. What's so often overlooked is how physical activity can be integrated into that traditional academic material. So hopefully today you're going to leave here with 15 to 20 different exercises and activities and games that are applicable to more than 40 different academic standards. Specifically, we're going to be aligning with both math and ELA, English Language Arts academic standards. I'll also share all these activities are plug and play. So what that means is you don't need any special equipment to do them. You can do them in any space or any place. So whether you've got a gym available to you or a cafeteria space, maybe it's a library, maybe it's a classroom space or a long hallway, you're going to be able to do these activities. Space is not going to be a limiting factor for there. It's also going to have some grade level alignment. So I'll be sharing examples, really K through 12. The meat of what we share is that K through 8th grade range. But do me a favor and go ahead in the chat. Tell me what grade levels you're working with. If you're in a program director role, you might have sites, that are all K through 12, or working with sites that cover grades K through 12. But if most of them are elementary, maybe kind of that's the content you're most interested in. But put that in the chat for me, because that's really helpful as I kind of share examples throughout today's presentation to make sure that it's relevant for you and the sites that you're working with and the staff members that would benefit most from this information. Great, I'm seeing a lot of K8, K8, pre-K4, so kind of in the meat of that elementary age range. Excellent. All of these are age-appropriate fitness exercises and activities too, so not only do we have that grade level alignment, I'll be sharing some examples of how one particular activity, one of my favorites, alphabet relay race, can be adapted for kindergarten first graders, second, third, fourth, fifth, all the way up, 6th through 8th grade into high school and so on. Actually, when we do these in person, many of the adults love alphabet relay race as much as the students do. So they can all be adapted to a variety of different grade levels. So I already asked you, dropping what grade levels you're working with, as that way we can make today's content most relevant. All right, so I'm going fast because we only have an hour here today, but each activity slide is going to start with a slide like this. I'm not going to read every word to you, but it basically is just showing you the 3 activities that we're about to show you videos and clips of, and then the academic standards that they directly align with. So don't feel like you need to copy all of this down. Like I said at the end, I'll make sure you guys have the opportunity, if you'd like a copy of this presentation with the videos and everything in it, that we can get that to you. So don't feel like you have to jot it all down. But I share this as an example to say, like, we are going to be going through 40 different academic standards for grades K through 8 today. So kind of a lot of meat in what we're going to be talking about. So the very first exercise that I'm going to demonstrate for you guys is called a Frankenstein walk or Frankenstein kick. If I can get my slide to advance here, here we go. This is a great stretch for all ages. And the way it works, we're going to watch a video in just a second. That's why it's black right now. But arms are out front, parallel to the ground. And then students step, kicking one leg up as close to horizontal as is comfortable for them. So I kept this slide, blank for just a second and intentionally described the exercise using the words parallel and horizontal. Just by giving those words in the verbal cues that I'm providing, we're bringing in geometry standards into this exercise. You'll see those geometry prompts on from 4th grade up, really kind of using those describing words there. So let's take a look at Frankenstein walks, and then I'll share some kind of the other math alignment that we can easily do for these.
Next up, our Frankenstein kick. Put your arms out in front of you and kick foot to hand. Out in front. We're going to do 30 divided by 2. What's that? 15. Arms out in front. Ready, set, go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 13, 14, 15. Amazing job, guys.
So in that particular video, our instructor prompted the students just by asking, what is 30 divided by 2? And they all answered 15. And that's how they determined how many kicks that they'd be doing, right? So by simply solving a math problem to determine the number of repetitions of that exercise. And then they performed the 15 and then moving along. So that's really what we're sharing today, are simple academic integrations into a variety of different physical activities, either in the way we describe a particular exercise or activity, like I said, with those terms horizontal or parallel to the ground, in how I described the Frankenstein kick, or in how we determine the quantity of exercises that we're going to be doing, like we saw in the video, 30 divided by 2. Now for younger kids, for this particular activity, we might do some skip counting. So maybe we're counting by 2s, by 5s, or by 10s, or maybe we're even counting by 100s up to 1,000, right? So really easy to kind of scale that integration based on the age range that we're working with. So I want to show these pictures to you that in contrast to the video. In the video, the students were standing in the exact same space, which is really great if you're working in a small space environment. But also if you're working your way down a long hallway, the students can kind of be walking while they're doing this activity. Again, that's a Frankenstein kick. That's a just kind of nice warm up stretching exercise. So this next one is going to be introducing patterns, multiples of 3, 5, 7, 9s, and really works for all our age ranges. So this is a 3-step stretch, and this is really a great warm-up activity to, like I said, reinforce those multiples of 3 or just any odd number. So first, let's take a look at the video. And I don't think this one has sound. So we see the student stepping forward, crossing right in front of left, then left in front of right, then right in front of left. And on that 3rd step, they bend forward and touch their toes. Now, because they're bending forward on the 3rd step or the odd number, they'll actually end up alternating which foot is in front with each bend. So getting a nice stretch with this one. Now, to add the math component, what we do is we whisper count. So the students might sound like this. 1, 2, 3. 6, 9. So what we end up hearing and reinforcing is 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, as they're moving across the space here. So reinforcing multiples for our younger students, we're talking about patterns here. So that's an AAAB pattern, where each step is an A and the B is the bend forward, right? You can obviously equate this to skip counting too, but I think for our older students, talk about, reinforcement of multiples of 7. What a great way to help kind of refresh those factors in through the multiples of 7. One thing I also want to note about this particular exercise, and a couple that we'll be pointing out through the presentation today, is that this is a midline crossing exercise. So what I mean by that is, in this case, their right leg or their left leg was crossing the center of their body. So nose, belly button down. What science proves is when we do these midline crossing activities is that we're actually boosting brain power, critical thinking, focus, concentration, ability to engage in discussion and problem solving, just by doing midline crossing activities. And that's true for adults. So next time you're kind of feeling like that, 3 p.m. if you're working in a classroom all day or in an office all day, 3 p.m. Kind of drop before you've got to head and gear up for after school, stand up and do the 3-step stretch, kind of do it across the space, or as we saw kind of at the beginning of the video, the young girl in the gray here, she ends up staying in the same spot. So this can be done in a small space too. And that midline crossing activity is going to help you sit back down more refreshed and more ready to focus on the next task at hand. So the last exercise in this kind of first group of 3 warm-up activities, we're going to get to some games in just a few minutes, is called hip hops. So in the video here, you are going to hear us counting by 2s, and specifically we're aligning with math standards for 2nd and 3rd grade students, with some skip counting there. You could also count by 5s or by 10s. You could bring in some ELA and do the alphabet or do some spelling here, giving a letter to each hop. So let's take a look at hip hops, and then I'll share a few more integration examples there. So skip counting, obviously, we're going to associate that with younger students, but if we wanted to do this one with older students, let's bring in some multiplication or some division. We could review multiples of 8. So let's count by 8s up to 96, right? As we're giving a multiple of 8 to each hop as we move through the exercise, or asking them, if we're going to count by 8s up to 96, how many hops did we actually do, right? Then they've got to solve a multi-step word problem, because now they've got to kind of convert, say, okay, we counted to 96, we did it in multiples of 8, 96 divided by 8, right? To solve the problem. Again, so to review that kind of first set there, we covered all of the counting standards that you see listed here. Then with those Frankenstein walks and the 3-step stretch, we represented some addition and subtraction with our whisper counting. We also incorporated the skip counting in several of those examples. And then as an added bonus that you don't see listed on the standards here, we brought in those geometry standards by using the terms parallel and horizontal as a part of those Frankenstein kicks. So these are really just kind of creative ways to go about doing an exercise or a stretch or an activity, right? It's naturally aligning with the standards that you're seeing throughout today's information. Okay, so let's move in. We're kind of moving up the grade levels here into some of the operations and algebraic thinking standards. Now, one of the easiest ways to incorporate multiplication is simply by describing the sets and repetitions of an exercise. So we can describe these several different ways, aligning with some different math standards based on how we describe or how we prompt students. Now I'll share, we've got various clips from several different sessions. And so the example that I share with you may not be the example that you see in the video. So kind of bear with me on that a little bit. But we're going to start by looking at wall push-ups here. Now, I may ask or tell students that we're going to do one group or one set of 8 push-ups for a total of 8 push-ups. And then we do our first set. So I'd have them count with me, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? And then kind of review that 1 times 8 equals 8. In that example, I solved the problem for the students. But I could have also as easily said, let's do 1 set or 1 group of 8 push-ups. How many push-ups is that total, right? And that was a very simple and basic multiplication answer or problem, but hopefully kind of gives you that idea of the set and rep terms and being able to use those as multiplication and division. So let's take a look at wall push-ups. These are a really great introduction to a push-up. They are a much more modified version of a traditional push-up. And so students of almost all abilities are able to do this activity. So they've got their hands out wide, about chest height. They're just bending their elbows and pushing back up. One thing we might have them do is, kind of count the number of cinder blocks in between each other so that they've got plenty of space. Another thing, we might bring in some division. So here next, thinking about those operations and algebraic thinking problems and standards, I'm kind of going to pitch the problem to them a little bit reverse and make them think through how to solve the problem. So for you guys, answer in the chat if you know the answer to the next question that I ask. So we're going to do some wall push-ups. We want to do 16 push-ups total. We're going to do those in sets of 8 repetitions each. How many sets will we do? Okay, we want to do 16 push-ups total in sets of 8 repetitions each. How many sets will we do? So answer in the chat if you know. Two. Nice. Shannon was quick on the math there. So simply by kind of asking the question a little bit differently, right? I could have just as easily said, what's 16 divided by 2? But I made you start kind of thinking about the problem a little bit backwards. I gave you the answer of we want to do 16 total, and then you've got to almost solve for X, right? Which is the number of sets. So we've got algebra in there. For younger students, I could have worded it a little bit differently and just, said we want to do 16 divided by 8, how many sets are we going to do? Right. So great job there, but just sharing several different examples of how to cue or prompt the students to integrate a variety of different standards across grade levels. So up next, we're going to see some squats. So to perform a squat, you just kind of sit like you're going to sit in a chair, and then you stand back up before you go too far down. Now, again, this is another one that's really easy to build in multiplication, just thinking about sets and repetitions. So this time we're going to use a comparison statement. So let's say we've got 24 squats total. We can do 3 sets of 8 or 8 sets of 3. And then just let the students pick individually kind of what combination or what set of factors they want to do, they want to perform, right? Everybody is still arriving at doing 24 squats, but they got to kind of choose their path of arriving there, right? We could even bring in some other factors too. It doesn't just have to be, 3 times 8. So let's take a quick look at squats here, and then I'll share a little SEL component that we can do with that comparing factors. So you basically just saw a basic squat there, sitting like you're going to sit in a chair and then standing back up. So kind of thinking back to that comparison statement, let's say we want everybody to do 12 squats. Okay, they can do 3 sets of 4. They could do 4 sets of 3. They could do 2 sets of 6 or 6 sets of 2. They could do 1 set of 12 or 12 sets of 1, right? They've got lots of options there. So we'd ask students, pick the combination that they'd like to perform and then do their combination. Now let's bring in some SEL, some communication here. Say, okay, I want you to go find somebody who did the same factor combination as you. So if I chose to do 3 sets of 4, I'm asking around trying to find other students that also did 3 sets of 4, right? Then go find somebody who did a different combination. So maybe if I did 3 sets of 4, I'm going to find somebody, who did any of the other combinations. Maybe I find somebody that did 2 sets of 6, right? But then talk about why they chose that factorial set, and you get some really fun answers, right? It's, oh, I wanted to get them over quickly, says the student who chose to do 1 set of 12, or the student who does 3 sets of 4, like me. Oh, I wanted to have a few breaks in there, right? So really getting them to understand that we all arrived at doing 12 squats, but we were able to take our own individual paths to get there. So kind of some communication and communicating those decisions. So again, a summary of the standards that we went through on those 2 exercises. Multiplication and division are some of the easiest standards to work into just general fitness exercises through those sets and repetitions. What's great is if you had the opportunity to work with classroom teachers to determine kind of which tables to focus on. So for example, we could have done all of those exercises focusing on our 4s, right? We could have 4 times 1, 4 times 2, and kind of doing problems around multiplication and division through multiples of 4. So that's kind of a nice opportunity if you're able to work with classroom teachers to see what might be most relevant, or also kind of picking up things during those tutor time opportunities as a part of after school programming time. Okay, so we're going to kind of switch activities a little bit, but we're going to stick with math, but switch to measurement and data standards that you see here. So the first thing we're going to do is thinking just about telling time. Now, we often think of those standards relating to telling time, as you see here in that kind of 2nd through 3rd grade realm, but I'm going to show you some ways that we can integrate that all the way up through 8th grade. So how many of you can relate? You instruct students to watch the clock and do something for 30 seconds. So anything for 30 seconds. And most often they kind of sit there and they wait till the second hand either, gets to the 6 or starts right at the 12, right? Because that's the easiest way for them to calculate the 30 seconds or watch those 30 seconds. So these next few exercises are a really great way to work on that. So answer in the chat box if you know the answer to my next question. We want to start our wall sit with the second hand on the 3, and we're going to hold it until it gets to the 9. How many seconds would this be? Answer in the chat if you know. We want to start our wall sit, which is the exercise we're going to do. We're going to hold it from the 3 to the 9. How many seconds would that be? We're watching a clock and we're holding from the 3 to the 9. The second hand is on the 3 and it's going all the way around to the 9. On an analog clock. I should clarify there, would be probably helpful. That's right, Amanda, 30 seconds, right? So should have clarified there with the analog clock. But this is a really great way to work on that for our younger students. Anybody who's saying, oops, do not worry about it, right? I didn't clarify the analog clock part. If you're just looking at like a 3-second marker, then certainly from the 3 to the 9 is 6 seconds, right? But if we're talking about the large numbers moving from the 3 to the 9, then we're looking at 30 seconds. It could also be from the big 2 to the 8, right? Or the 4 to the 10. So this does a couple of things. For our younger students, it really helps them get comfortable reading a clock and kind of doing that quick math of, okay, if the timer starts with the second hand on the 4 and it goes to the 10, that's also 30 seconds. But for our older students, what we can also talk about is how each of the large numbers on an analog clock represents 5 seconds, right? So now we're talking about different multiples of 5 as we move around the clock. So let's take a look at wall sits. These are static exercise, which means that we kind of hold the exercise, we hold the position for a certain amount of time, which is what makes it so great for these time data and measurement academic standards. So sometimes we dance during our wall sits too, which makes it a lot of fun. Or, we've already done the math problem, right? So they've already answered how many seconds it'd be from the 2 to the 8. And then we start some music and we hold the wall sit for that 30 seconds. Keeps things interesting. Okay, so up next, sticking kind of with that time, doing math around time measurement, we're going to move to a plank. So you may be familiar with a plank, but let's check it out here in the video.
Now it's time for our plank. We'll turn over and balance on our elbows and toes. We'll hold this together. We're gonna hold it for 1/4 of a minute. How many seconds is that? 15, that's right. So we'll get down on the ground onto our elbows and toes, and we'll hold this position for 15 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Almost there. 12, 13, 14, 15. Way to go.
So we saw in the video, she just asks how long is 1/4 of a minute, and kind of we learn and memorize early on that that's 15 seconds. Now, as we think about how we can incorporate this with older students, we can make those time fractions a little bit more complex. So here's another one for the chat box. If we want to hold a plank for 1/10 of 1 minute, how long would that be? If we want to hold a plank for 1/10 of 1 minute, how long would that be? If you know, put the answer in the chat box. Shannon, super quick there. 6 seconds. That's right. That's right. So every time I do this one, my brain immediately wants to say 10, right? Because I'm hearing the 1/10 of 1 minute. But what's great about this question is it actually forces you to convert the 1 minute to seconds and then do the math, finding the 1/10 of 60 seconds is 6 seconds. So that's right. Great job, Shannon. So that's a really great way to kind of incorporate these for older students too. Percentages also work really well. So I could ask you to calculate, what's 20% of 1 minute? Well, that'd be 12 seconds. So that's a great way to kind of make these, scale these up for older students and bringing in different problem solving skills.
Now,
so to review those two again, static exercises, meaning that we're holding the exercise position, are a really great way to incorporate these time and data standards. Like I said, for older students, you can make those fractions a little bit more complex, and or using percentages is a great way to bring the standards all the way up to 8th grade students. Okay, so the last set of kind of the math standards that we're going to be going through today are related to measurement and geometry. So for younger students, we're going to be talking about the configuration of some shapes and recognition of shapes, but we're going to scale that up for older students to perimeter, area, angles, and even the Pythagorean theorem for those middle school students. So starting with an activity called shape jumps. This is, like I said, another exercise that can easily be scaled up or down based on grade level. Now, it's one of the few that I don't have a picture or a video for today. So I'm going to ask you to use your imagination here. We're going to do a simple example of a triangle. So for kindergarten and 1st grade students, I might ask, how many sides does a triangle have? Hopefully they answer 3. And then I'd say, okay, put on your, visionary goggles, and I want us to all pretend like we're at the bottom left-hand side of our triangle. Then let's all jump together. Let's jump up to the top point in front of us. Now let's jump back and to the right to go to that bottom right-hand side. And now let's jump over to the left to complete our triangle. Just so we kind of drew our triangle with our jumps, right? And we did all 3 points was 1 jump. So for younger students, shape recognition, kind of putting the kinesthetic learning component, that active learning, and then, okay, I've got 3 sides. Now I'm associating that with direction and where I am in space and time, and kind of crafting those, building those early geometry skills. Now let's scale that up for let's say 3rd, 4th, 5th grade students. I want you to think about building a triangle with a perimeter of 9. Now, remember, jumps are our unit of measure. So how many jumps would each side be? So answer in the chat if you know this one. We want to build a triangle with a perimeter of 9, and jumps are our unit of measure. So how many jumps per side of a triangle? A perimeter of 9. How many jumps per side? 3 jumps per side. That's right. So perimeter is the sum of all the sides. So then with these students, now we jump together. And instead of just doing one big jump up to that top point, we jump 3 times, 1, 2, 3 to get to that top. Now we're headed to the back bottom right. So we jump 1, 2, 3, and then over to complete our triangle 1, 2, 3. Now we have built a triangle with a perimeter of 9 jumps, right? So we can do this with different shapes. It doesn't just have to be a triangle. We can also incorporate angles, or for a circle, we could do radius and diameter. So I could say, okay, we're building a circle with a radius of 2. What would the diameter be? It'd be 4, right? So they jump 4 times for that diameter, and then an infinite number of points to do the outside of their circle, right? I could also ask students, let's work in pairs. And I want you to think of as many shapes as you can with a perimeter of 12. Okay, so for a square, that could be 3 by 3 by 3 by 3. A rectangle, that could be 2 by 4 by 2 by 4. Or a triangle could be 4 by 4 by 4. So they're working in pairs to solve, kind of build as many shapes as they can with a perimeter of 12, and then they'd be jumping those together either in pairs or small groups, right? So we're getting some communication in there, some leadership as a part of kind of that small group pair work, some problem solving together as well. I really, really love shape jumps. So we can even take that up, like I said, to the Pythagorean theorem. I can give them the length of 2 sides of my triangle, and then they've got to solve for jumps for that third side, right? So a squared plus b squared equals c squared, and I'm having them solve for that c squared. All right, so moving right along, next we are going to measure the distance between point A and point B. But we're going to measure that a little differently. We're going to measure it in long jumps. So what I might ask students to do before we do our long jumps is say, okay, I want you to estimate how many long jumps it's going to take you to get from this side of the gym or the hall or the space, whatever we're in, to that side. Okay, so we'll take a look at the students doing a long jump here. But they make just a big long jump, landing with their feet together, right? And they're counting their jumps as they go. So then after they finish, we ask, okay, how many long jumps did it take? Now it's their own unit of measure, because my long jump is different than your long jump, and it's different than your neighbor's long jump, right? So it's their own unique unit of measure, but they're comparing it to their own estimation. So afterwards, okay, I can not only just are we using estimation skills and comparing our estimated versus our actual measurement, we can find the error of our measurement if we want. So doing some subtraction with our actual and our estimated numbers. We can also take that same measurement from long jumps to bunny hops. So now we're going to change our unit of measure, but our distance doesn't change. So this is really nice to compare to feet versus inches, or meters versus centimeters. So we'll take a quick look at bunny hops here. So if you want to take this even one step further for kind of an even greater STEM connection, what you can do is kind of put some chart paper up on the wall and have students chart their estimated, number of long jumps with a purple marker, and their estimate and then their actual number of long jumps, with a different color marker, and then their estimated number of bunny hops, new color, and actual number of bunny hops, new color. And then as a group, as a program, you can find the standard error of the estimation. You can do a lot of different things with that. So I think it's kind of fun to take this physical activity, right? It's just bunny hops and long jumps. And now we have integrated so many different math standards and taken it all the way to charting and kind of really putting that STEM connection to it. So it's fun to take these activities to that next level. So again, quick review of what you just saw there, kind of showing you all the different standards. We talked about making estimated guesses. We could have talked specifically about overestimating or underestimating if we wanted to. We talked about standard error of the estimate. It's really easy to scale this content up and down based on grade level of our groups. All right, so we focused quite a bit on math standards, and we've only got about 20 minutes left here. So let's jump into some of the ELA standards, or English Language Arts standards, and how we can integrate those into some different physical activities. So a couple of these initial ones are going to start for our younger age groups, but we'll continue to kind of move up just like we did with our more math focused activities. So this first one, alphabet stretch, is really focusing on letter recognition, phonics, and spelling. So it's alphabet stretch. It's a great warm up. It's a really good kind of cool down activity, or quiet time stretch, or even like a transition time activity. So if you're looking to transition from snack time into tutoring time, and you kind of need everybody to refocus, this is a really great way to do that. So what you're doing is you're working your way through the alphabet, using your body to form each letter. So let's take a look at some students doing that here in this video. So you get the idea there. You can bring spelling into this, so we don't just have to go from A to Z, right? We could spell weekly spelling words. We could do vocabulary words, kind of talking through the definitions as we're spelling the different words. We could also do kind of integrating some SEL and getting to know our peers. We could spell different participants' names. You could partner up, have them spell each other's name, or have them spell each other's favorite food. So there's some nice way to kind of scale that up for a little bit of older students, really up to about 5th grade on this one. So just kind of another really easy spelling activity is spelling word jumping jacks. So again, another great one to coordinate with classroom teachers on if you can, to get those weekly spelling words or vocab words or those kinds of things. In the video, you'll hear us doing math problem jumping jacks, but it could have easily been spelling word jumping jacks, giving one letter to each jumping jack to spell out a word. So we'll quickly take a look at the students doing these jumping jacks. So you're probably familiar with the jumping jack already, but I always like to share. But again, spelling out, instead of counting 1, 2, 3, we'd spell a word like PowerUp, right? P-O-W-E-R-U-P, as we're doing our jumping jacks. Same thing with the alphabet stretch. You could work in pairs or small groups, spell different names, spell different personal characteristics or qualities, or if your program operates on some different themes, right? So maybe 1 month is gardening theme. You could be spelling words related to gardening. So you can really get creative with how you incorporate the kind of spelling component of these different activities. So kind of jumping right into our next ELA activity with, again, one of my personal favorites that I kind of led off with today is alphabet relay race. So we can do a number of different ways to integrate some ELA into this activity. It's not just alphabet focused. We can bring in some grammar related activities, but let me describe it. So it's a relay style race. So you divide participants up into small teams, and the first student from each team is going to run to a stopping point, shout out a word that starts with the letter A, and then run back. The next student on that team is going to run, shout out a word that starts with the letter B, and then run back. C, D, so on and so forth, right? So, and then the first team to Z wins. Now for kindergarten and 1st grade students, we might just be focused on getting through the alphabet, not even coming up with a word, right? Because for kindergartners and 1st graders, it's hard enough to get that coordination, teamwork, and communication going in all of this. But as we move up through the grade levels, we can start putting some categories on it. So for, let's say, 4th and 5th grade students, maybe we say you've got to name a state or a state capital, A through Z. or a fruit or a vegetable, A through Z. And we can keep scaling that up for middle school students. Maybe we want to do parts of a cell. So they've got to work through biology terms, parts of the cell, as they're running the relay race A through Z, or elements from the periodic table of elements, right? Chemistry, bringing in chemistry. So some real opportunity with this one to integrate some cross-curricular content. We'll take a quick look at a video of the students playing alphabet relay. It's a little bit hard to hear, but I'll elaborate on it after you see it.
Y'all know the name of this game? It's the alphabet relay. What was your letter? Oh, F. Awesome. E. Awesome.
Okay, so something we incorporate on every single one of our lessons is what we call a character concept. And it's just a simple prompt for that on-site staff member to ask as it related to the game of the day or some of the different exercises or activities. And I think this is a really great one where we incorporate teamwork and leadership quite often. So afterwards, just giving students that kind of prompt of, now, how did your group need to work as a team? What kind of things did you all do to work as a team in order to be successful at this game? What could your team do differently next time? Let's play again. Let's play round two. What is your team going to do differently? Did anybody in your team step up as a leader? And if so, how did their leadership help your team, right? So just some really simple communication, leadership, teamwork skills there that we're able to really easily bring into this game. I think in the video we see, some students are telling the next team members in line what letter they will be when it's their turn. But what they don't realize is that the student whose turn he needs to run and he doesn't know what letter he's on, right? And so that would be something that they would kind of come out of after they finished the round and said, everybody didn't know what letter they were on. And so our team wasn't able to go as quickly as we would have liked. So not only do we have that ELA integration here naturally, but also this kind of character concept conversations can happen as well. Alrighty, just a few more activities for today before we kind of get things wrapped up. And these next few, we've got to get a little bit creative about the application of these standards, but they still definitely align. So the first set of standards wants students to understand the progression or timeline of a story. Well, when we're running ladders, we aren't actually telling a story, but we are doing things with a structured progression in a pattern, which is really the overall concept of this key ideas and detail standard. So what we see in the video is that the students are running to kind of point A and they do one jumping jack, and then they run back. Then they run to point B and do 2 jumping jacks, then back. Then to point 3, they do 3 jumping jacks, and then all the way back to the start. So our pattern here is run, jumping jack, run, but we're progressing through the activity by adding a jumping jack at each point. So we can think about a couple of different things. We can use context it with storytelling, right? We could say first, you're going to do this. Second, you're going to do this. So students are really practicing that narrative that goes along with storytelling. But we also kind of have that structure and doing things chronologically or in a pattern, which relates back to that key ideas and details standard. The next game, this one is really best for younger age groups, so kind of up to about 3rd, 4th grade here, but this one is called Food Frenzy. And what we are doing with this one is that we are interpreting words, phrases, and figurative meanings, which are academic standards for this age group. So we call out a food and an action, and then students kind of act that out with their bodies. So that we might pop like popcorn, or in the video, you'll see them like sizzle like bacon or scramble like an egg. We love this one. It's really fun to hear the students' ideas and what they're going to come up with as a part of these activities, in particular, this Food Frenzy game. So we'll take a quick look.
Sizzle like bacon.
So again, how we're aligning with ELA here is that they're interpreting words, phrases, and figurative meanings, and then coming up with those as well. When we want to bring in an SEL component or a character concept, we talk a little bit about communication here, and we reiterate the importance of nonverbal communication and some of the things that we can do if we're acting out different ideas or scenarios with our bodies. Alrighty, so another one of my favorites is called Exercise Shipwreck. Now, a lot of people have heard of this game called Shipwreck before, and we're connecting with ELA standards around connecting words to a visual representation. So the idea with this game is that you don't want to be the last one out, and we call different parts of our boat. So I might say front of the boat or back of the boat, sides of the boat. But then we also have some themed activities. So we might swab the deck. So they're going to get into a squat hold position and pretend like they're mopping the deck. Or it's exercise shipwreck, right? So if they walk the plank, they have to get on their elbows and toes into a plank position. And again, you don't want to be the last one to perform the exercise or activity, or you're out. So let's take a quick look at exercise shipwreck. And remember, we're connecting to those ELA standards on connecting words to a visual representation. So I'll also point out, this is a really great example here. We're swabbing the deck of making this work in a small space. So students were not allowed to run to the front of the boat, which is what they all just hop to. To keep it safe in a small space, we had students hop on one leg. Here they go to the sides of the boat. They'd hop on one leg instead of running. It slowed the game down. It kind of kept everybody safe. They weren't running into each other, especially in this really small space that kind of was just between a couple of classrooms in a school. But there they are walking the plank again in that plank position. Now, this is a really great one. You can switch it up. So if there's been a recent reading, you can take the setting of that story. So maybe it was in outer space, and then asking students to identify some of the different themes and actions and activities of the characters or the settings of the story. So now we're really expanding the number of ELA standards that we're aligning to with this one. So it's certainly another one of my favorites. Alrighty, the last one I'm going to share with you today is a game called Bop It. It's certainly one of our favorites, and if you can recall that handheld game where you either you bopped it, you pulled it, you twisted it, or you pulled it, twist it, spin it, right? So we do the same thing, but with our bodies. So here is Bop It. I'll let you take a look, and then we'll wrap things up for questions.
Who's ready to play a game? Today, we're going to play Bop It. If I say bop it, we'll jump up. If I say pull it, we'll reach up and pull down. If I say twist it, we'll turn to the back and turn back to the front. If I say spin it, we'll spin all the way around. And if I say kick it, we'll kick to the front. All right, now we're going to play Bop It. Ready, guys? Twist it. Bop it. Kick it. Spin it. Bop it. Spin it. Pull it. Bop it. Kick it. Kick it. Twist it. Spin it. Great job, everyone.
We have a lot of fun with that one, as you can probably see. So how does this all work together? So that's kind of the very last thing that I'll share. So we started off several of the examples, right? Those were warm-up activities, the Frankenstein walk, the 3-step stretch. Then we kind of transitioned into some more traditional exercises and activities, right? We did squats, we saw the wall push-ups, the plank, and the wall sit. So we recommend starting with some of those warm-up, if you're looking for, a 20 to 30 minute block of some physical activity where you're integrating the academic material that you saw here today. You start with those warm-up activities. You spend, 5 to 8 minutes or so going through those warm-up activities. So you might do the Frankenstein walk activity a couple different times. The first time as you cross the gym, you might count by twos. Let's say we're working with, anywhere from kindergarten up to 3rd grade students. So we might do that counting by twos, and then do it again, counting by 5. So now we've kind of done 2 rounds of that Frankenstein kick. And then we might go into hip hops, that side to side jump. And the first time we do it, we count by 5s to review what we did with the Frankenstein kicks. And then the next time we do it, we're going to count by 10. So we're doing 2 sets of that one, right? And then we transition into some of those more traditional fitness exercises, providing those different prompts along the way. So we might do the plank 3 different times with 3 different time kind of problems that they've got to solve, right? So a quarter of a minute would be 15 seconds, or a half of a minute. How long would that be? 30 seconds. And then we transition to some of the different game activities. So kind of over the course of 30 minutes, we've done several of the exercises, maybe 2 or 3 different times, and then play a round or 2 or 3 rounds even of a game like an alphabet relay race. So I hope that you feel like you can take some of the exercises and activities and just those integrations that we gave examples of today, and take that back and incorporate that as physical activity at the sites you're working with. Certainly, we've got a plethora of resources that we'd be happy to share. If you'd like a copy of this presentation, I will drop a link in the chat, or you can open up your phone and kind of with your camera, take a picture of this QR code. And it'll take you to just a little form where I can make sure that you get a copy of this session materials today. Like I said, obviously you saw all the videos and things that are in this file, so we've got to send it out as a link for you. So in addition to everything you saw here today, I'll be happy to share some of those tips and tricks that I mentioned. Again, those are a free resource on our website. I mean, we also have full curriculum available too, but want to make sure that you know that we've got free resources just as much as we've got kind of a full year's worth of programming if you really liked what you saw here today. So appreciate everybody's time today. I'm going to open it up for questions in these last few minutes. And I'll be here, and Erica, if there's anything you need from the group as we wrap up here just for a few minutes, then feel free to hop on in too. But I appreciate everybody letting me be here today.
Thank you, Stacey. Yeah, these were great resources, especially we just talked about lesson plans the other day. So you linking in the standards was a good way for them to see the standards like the PE. So it was awesome. Okay, for everybody, you'll still have a minute. You can put questions in the chat, but we are recording, and I'll send this video out on Friday. And any other materials that Stacey sends me, I'll send out. So if I don't have any questions, I've got another minute, and then we'll be done for everybody. And so then this should be our last training session before the Christmas holiday. So is that right, Lotus? Rebecca and Melissa? All right. So this is our last training before the Christmas holiday. So we're gonna wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Be safe and get some rest. 21st century it's great for our kids, but it is a lot, and we recognize that. So definitely get some rest after this holiday break. Y'all have a good one.
Thanks so much, everybody.